Hey guys, welcome to the Osman broadcast. My name is Brett, also known as Ogre Barbarian on the Reddit.
Hi guys, this is Daniel, also known as DPO427 on Reddit.
And Doombox is experiencing some technical difficulties right now. Hopefully he'll be able to join us a little bit later. But we are the Oddsmen, and today we have a special guest.
Hello world, this is Daniel from Superhero Review, also known as Superman2598, both on the game and on Reddit and on Discord. So you can find me everywhere at Superman2598. And with me as always, at least in audio, is...
Hello world, and this is Maddie from Superhero Review, and you're listening to the Oddman Podcast.
We have a lot of good stuff lined up for you today, guys. I'm going to be your host today, so if things get a little goofy, well, suck it up. Today, first thing we're going to talk about is going to be the state of the meta. There's been a lot of noticeable changes with 1.16. Most notably, I think, is Green Lantern Hal Jordan and his Enrage immunity actually working to counter Harley Quinn Mad Jester. What do you guys think about it? DP?
I was one of those people at the beginning. I was a skeptic of wondering why it wasn't working that way. So I just figured it was a layering issue. So basically the way they introduced start of the battle effects, I figured that it meant that it starts before everything else happens. So I figured, oh, okay, so this is working as it's supposed to be. But actually, apparently it was just a bug. Because something like leadership abilities should be a state-based or static-based ability that should always be there. And I guess they figured, okay, yeah, this is not supposed to be the way it is, and we're going to fix it now. The one thing that I don't like is the way it looks right now. I'm happy that it works, that it's working as it's supposed to be, I guess. But if you've noticed how it works, Harley Quinn comes in, she does her taunt, she'll randomly enrage someone, you'll see it flash enrage in red somewhere, and then you'll see Hal Jordan's ability kick in afterwards. So what happens is you'll see his leadership enrage immunity show up, and then it looks as though the character that was enraged loses enrage. So it looks like it disappears. So it's sort of like it's working as intended, it just looks really awkward. That's sort of my only qualm about it.
Yeah. What do you think, man?
One of the things that I think is really cool about it is that Hal Jordan has always been a strong leader. I think that that's why they gave us him to begin off the game, and just the fact that he can add that shield to all of his team. Now if you're able to get him to like a level 3, you can get that call assist. I think that's one of the first ones that we all kind of go after. And then right after that, if you decide to use him as the team lead, as I did, then you want to put that next legendary onto his leadership ability, which will take that silence immunity, the enrage immunity, and one other immunity. I forgot which one it was. And then from there, if you use his big hammer as the third one, then you can kind of wipe out any kind of basically anybody, especially the Deathstroke teams, because from that point on, it'll take out any kind of buffs that he starts with. So I think it makes an already strong leader a much stronger one now that they've fixed the bugs with it.
Yeah, I have to agree with you guys. I think Hal's in a great spot. He's come a long way. He's pretty much the only character who's literally survived every meta. He's always been a good, solid pick. So this just goes to further show that he really is that good, solid pick regardless. Right. So that's definitely something.
I think there was a time whenever the speed meta was really out there, and before they fixed that HP bug, where he kind of took a lull. But I think that now that they've fixed that HP, he can really be tanky, take a lot of that abuse, and then really deal out a lot himself. And if you have some strong characters like a Cyborg, and you hit that call assist just right, man, you can wipe out another team pretty quickly.
Oh, heck yeah.
An interesting thing that Doom wrote on our notes while we were typing this up before the show, he indicated that it could be a possible indication of a shift in mechanical properties because of like what I just mentioned earlier about the way I thought layers would work in terms of like how things start at the beginning of the game. If everything is supposed to start at the beginning of the game with all the leadership abilities and passive abilities, this could mean that what's the word here? The way the mechanics work, they could either make layering more complicated or very simplified. I'm not really sure the direction they'll be going. Like, the way it looks like right now is that everything's supposed to happen at the same time. What do you think?
Right. Yeah, it's one of those things that I'm hoping that leadership is applied first, then passives, then any activated abilities that return 0, like Harley. That's what I would hope that they do. Whether or not that actually is what's happening, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that's. There's not really much I can add there. I think you're absolutely right. I think once you get started, the fact is, if you've had that legendary ability on his leadership, that was intended to keep him being one of the strongest leaders in the game. And I think that now that they've fixed those bugs, that just further pounds home the point that Hal Jordan is going to be a good leader for a long time.
Yeah, it actually brings it back to his leadership. His the leadership order. I was actually one of the people that never took his leadership legendary because I thought that it wasn't really useful. I didn't think silence immunity and range immunity were that good at the beginning of the game. The only person that would benefit, the only person that you would really care about stopping with silence immunity was Robin at the beginning of the game, because he goes before a lot of people. But nobody plays Robin anymore, so it never really mattered, I thought. And then enrage immunity became a thing when Harley Quinn got reworked. But then, because it seemed like it wasn't working, I decided to put that off, and I got his shield upgrade before that. And then now...
for the cooldown?
Yeah, exactly. So then I figured, if that's not working, so I might as well just take the other one. And now I have to wait till L4 to get his leadership now. And I'm actually...
Oh, man.
I'm almost there. actually. So I'm pretty sure that I know that now, okay, it looks like it's working as intended, so I'll do that. I'll get that now. It seems good. It seems good enough. So...
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point. I guess whenever I'm choosing which legendary abilities I want to go with, I always take the thought that eventually they're going to fix the bug, whatever the bug is at that moment. Exactly. I don't want to have to now save up 180 legendary or hero fragments so that I can get that next stage. If I know that that's going to be a better legendary in the future, once they fix this bug, I'm going to go ahead and go for it anyway.
And that's a good point, actually. I mean, you wanna plan for the future, not right now sometimes. So it's definitely, because it's a resource management game, you definitely want to be able to think ahead a little bit.
Another example of that is Captain Cold and Wonder Woman Champion of the Amazons. Because I'm not sure if it was only a visual bug, but for Wonder Woman, I think it was her buff legendary upgrade. It
had 2 legendary upgrades. It was not just visual. It actually applied both.
Oh, really? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like that bug...
Yeah, her legendary applied both.
But it seems like that bug has been fixed, except it might still...
I think so, yeah.
Visually. It might still be a visual bug, but it's not an actual bug. So people who think that, oh, well, this seems bugged, so I might as well take advantage of that and put the first point in there, it might not actually be worthwhile anymore. The opposite is true, for example, for Captain Cold, where I think it was his AoE that was bugged. The one that strips based on the number of, the one that purges buffs based on a certain number of slowdowns or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That was giving you the legendary upgrade for free, basically, without you actually having it. So people didn't put their point.
It's kind of the same thing that was happening to SS Lex back in the beginning when he would get the silence from his orbital.
Right.
Yes.
So yeah.
And that all goes back to the fact of, I mean, I agree completely that what we want to shoot for is what is the absolute best utilization of my resources. Even if it's not working right now, you're going to get so much of a backlash from the community that they're going to have to fix it, and usually pretty quickly.
Right. That brings us to another point that we'll talk about a little bit later when it comes to backlash. But we'll bring that up more in the community section. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah, for now, I think we're going to move on to what the current meta is versus past metas. What do you guys think of the health of the format right now?
Who starts?
Dan, go ahead and start us off this time.
All right.
What do you think of PvP?
So PvP for me, I'm not gonna lie. When the whole Deathstroke thing happened and Lobo happened, I got frustrated at first, and then I started realizing, okay, this is just like any other change that's happened before. We were using Hal Jordan at one time as the lead, and then I moved on to Emerald Archer Green Arrow as my lead, and then eventually moved on to Aquaman, and then eventually moved on to Supergirl. And this is just an ever changing, ever evolving shift that has to happen, because I imagine if I was still using Emerald Archer Green Arrow right now as my lead, I would probably be bored of the game by now. So I understand that people get frustrated. But I can say this. I'm currently a level 73. Now, I've been playing since this kicked off a year ago. But at a level 73, I still feel like I can beat some of those 78s and 79 teams that are out there with this Deathstroke combo. And so I don't feel like it's impossible to win any PvP match. Now, it may take me a couple tries, but it certainly is much more random number generated likelihoods than it was before. But I'm now having more fun than I did when this first kicked off. But just like all the other changes, I'm sure in about a month or so from now, it's going to be completely different.
No, that's a good point. DP, what do you think?
Pretty much, I agree pretty much with everything that Dan said. In general, if you think about for past formats, and that's sort of what we want to compare everything to, as Dan said, it's just a shift from one thing to another. We went through the super fast speed crit meta days. Then we went to the crit prevention meta, I guess you could call it, right? Which is basically all AoE, the complete AoE crit meta days. And then now we're into something else, right? And we're probably going to see another shift. I'm not sure how soon. If Dan said in the next month or two, I would be actually very happy if that happened. But being a little bit more pessimistic, I would probably wager sometime in the new year around February or March is when we'll actually have a full shift in the meta. We're seeing small partial shifts in the meta, but not full because there's not enough there to make the shift happen yet. We're taking the steps towards a shift, but not there yet. So which is what we'll get into in the next section. But what do you think?
Well, DP, let me ask you a question, DP. Do you think that that anybody in the current roster has the ability or has the skill set to change the meta currently, or do you feel like it's going to have to be a brand new character that hits or a rework of a character to get this thing to change again?
Are you talking about a character that will impact the meta like Deathstroke did, or a character that will
exactly?
Oh, okay, so currently, no, I don't think so, because there's not one character that can basically be an army in a can, right? There's no one character that can carry the team by himself. What we would need is a character that would obsolete either awareness or revive or something of that in that nature, something that would break the combo apart by himself. And he wouldn't have to do anything. He would just have to be there, right? So that's basically what Deathstroke is. He just has to be there and he's broken, right? He doesn't even have to start attacking.
A passive ability.
Exactly. So we need someone that will just be there, and then Deathstroke is no longer viable, basically. So it's kind of like how Supergirl and Aquaman was just there, and their passive leaders are, well, I guess in Aquaman it's not really a passive, but their leadership abilities just completely obsoleted the arrows. So that's the idea, right? So that's what we need. And I don't think we have that yet, but at the same time, well, what we're getting into is sort of the next section, right? But before we get into that, Ogre, what do you think about the current meta?
I honestly, okay, so there's something that recently happened. I'm going to just call it the event. And a lot of people last week, when they collected their PvP rewards, got knocked down multiple tiers and had multiple rewards in their inbox.
Oh,
right.
One of those glitches
now, because
like
of
the good old days.
Right? Now, the problem with that is because of that, people like me who hang out below the 10,000 mark, the 5,000 mark, just try to hang out below the Deathstroke meta. We're now being forced to see the meta, even though we don't want to.
Oh, because
I had a board earlier that was.
I see.
Yeah, because I had a board earlier that was 9 Deathstrokes and a cyborg leader, and I never see that where I hang out at in PvP, just because I don't want to deal with it. I mean, I still ran through most of it, and I was like, I'm bored now, and I reset the board. But it was one of those things that I think a lot of players just don't want to deal with that particular thing anymore, where they're dealing with 9 Deathstroke teams out of 10 fights. So. But I have to disagree that I think there are so many counters available right now. But I do think you make a good point that none of them have a passive effect to counter it. Well, however, I do believe that is coming with a rework character that they keep saying is coming, and that being chemo.
Ha,
Hear me
that would be amazing.
Hear me out here. Chemical spill currently does no damage and applies 1 to 2 bleeds. We can all agree that's very weak, right?
Mhm.
So what if that move got changed to apply the bleeds? Doesn't really matter how many. Let's just say 3, for example. Applies 3 bleeds, applies heal immunity. Because it's a chemical spill, why would you be able to heal through it? It
Mhm.
makes sense. Fallout currently does no damage. It applies a couple of speed downs and could take a chunk of meter at a very low chance. Again, this has a lot of potential to be reworked to give buff immunity or strip a bunch of buffs or something of that nature. Also, not to mention his passive is complete garbage right now. Oh, you hit me, get a bleed. I could easily see that handing out heal immunity as well. So there's a lot of potential in his rework coming, I think. So we just got to hope, that that's actually the case. And if that is the case, then he will be that total counter.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we all had
Go ahead.
We all had Deathstroke sitting on the back of our bench at one point, and now we all had to take the time to upgrade him once the rework happened. And I think you're right. If they want to get those lower tier players or those people that we've have on the backside of the bench and get them up there like a chemo, that's going to be the way to do it for sure.
Right. Now, and about chemo, and the other thing to point out is that he's energy based versus a physical based, so he'll have the affinity advantage too.
He's also special damage.
Right, that too.
Yes.
So he does a lot more damage.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, because
that's a big deal. These guys are all physical tanks. They're not.
Yeah.
They're not designed to take the special damage.
Yeah, because Deathstroke doesn't have that intelligence buff, so he's not that smart.
Right.
Even the WB spies are listening in.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, so speaking of answers to the current meta, though, what are ways to counter it? What do you guys bring into the battle? Do you bring heal immunity, buff immunity, anti-taunt, buff purging? What kind of silver bullet characters are out there that you guys are currently utilizing? DP, go ahead and start us off.
Okay. I use basically a little bit of everything. The only thing I don't really use much of right now is buff immunity. So for me, I use heal immunity with Dr. Fate, and I use buff purging with Catwoman or TDK or Wonder Woman DOJ. Anti-taunt is basically just TDK at the moment. Is there anyone else that benefits from other people taunting?
Currently, I don't think so.
Yeah. So basically, I use I think those are the characters that pretty much everyone else is using to combat the meta, except for Mira is one of the characters on my to-do list. I really want to switch Dr. Fate out for her when I get her up. Otherwise, the other options that I think, that Ogre and other people like Ogre would use are bleeds, which is really good counter to them too. So, but nothing too out of the ordinary. That's what I use to combat the meta. But the ironic thing is I use the meta to combat the meta. I play Deathstroke team too. So because if everyone sees if anyone comes up across me in the meta, in the PvP ladder, you'll always see like three of pretty much the same characters. I'll always be running Deathstroke, Baby Lobo, and Harley Quinn Manchester, and then plus the fourth slot will be one of those ways to combat the enemy team based on what their composition is like. So if they also have Harley Quinn, yeah. So if it's kind of boring, but that's sort of something I would want to touch on a little bit later too. But if they're running Harley Quinn, I'll bring in a buff purger like Catwoman or DOJ or something that's based on the rest of the composition. If they're not running Harley Quinn, I'll probably bring. If they're running Baby Lobo, I'll bring a heal immunity character like Dr. Fate. Otherwise, I'll probably be playing an Alliance mission character if it's an Alliance mission day. That's all.
All right, Dan, what do you got?
For me, anybody that's watched our channel for more than 2 episodes knows that I'm a huge Superman fan. And so I've done my best to try to get him. I've got him to a legendary level 4 where I've been able to unlock his heal immunity on his, his heat vision, whatever they call that. But what I've noticed is if you hit him with that, because I'm usually going after Baby Lobo with that, and so I'm hitting Superman's heat vision, but then right after is right about the time speed-wise that Lobo takes his, and then he knocks out anything that I've just hit, Superman-wise. And so my character doesn't get a chance to hit the Lobo before. So what I've had to switch to, even though I've took the time to get Superman all the way up to L4, is very similar to what you were saying. I've gone and taken Dr. Fate, which anybody that's listening, you need to spend some time in that hero challenge that's out there right now for Dr. Fate. I've been able to get him up to legendary level 3. And realistically, he's viable just at legendary level 1. So if you haven't gotten enough hero fragments for him, take the time to do that, because you can unlock I believe it's his third ability, which will give you heal immunity, and it'll last for more than 2 turns on the character. So it gives you enough time to hit Lobo with it and then take him out right after. Now, to that point, I think the character that I enjoy using most often, though, is Siren. And Siren will hit Deathstroke, put enough of the bleeds onto him, and I'll just focus in on him consistently and hope that none of my other characters accidentally take out their Lobo and start the process all over again.
Yeah. An interesting thing about the heal immunity characters, as Dan pointed out, Superman doesn't always kill Lobo based on how what their varying HPs are and their HP and damage output is. Because ironically, the heat vision. The heat vision is a special damage ability, and Superman doesn't have that high of intelligence. Mm-hmm. So it does true damage as well, but it doesn't do that much. And so basically, unless you're a Gear 11 Superman, you probably won't kill Max Baby Lobo at level 60 with heat vision. So you have to set up a chain where someone goes right after Superman and kills Lobo too. But as you said, like Lobo usually takes his turn a little bit after. Another thing that I found out is Huntress's heal immunity on her double basic legendary upgrade. If you read the fine print, it says gives heal immunity when he's at 50% or lower HP. Mm-hmm. So what happens is if you get the right amount of upgrades on Lobo's revive ability, he usually when he taunts, he gets HP back when he comes back. So if you get just enough, he'll start with just over 50 HP or 50% HP when he comes back. So even if Huntress has double upgrades on her basic, she won't she won't put heal immunity on him when he dies.
Yeah, and that's why I think that Dr. Fate is probably the best one out there currently when it comes to heal immunity.
I would say Dr. Fate and Mira. The only reason why I like Mira is because she also has the same type of ability, but it doesn't last as long as Dr. Fate's. But she also has more versatility because she can give mends, and she does special damage, and she gives overheal through her mends. So, I mean, she's more of a toolkit, whereas Dr. Fate is basically, I'm here to kill Lobo.
Yeah, and I think that there's, for the listeners out there, I think that you should take advantage right now, because Mira's fragments are hard to come by, but you've got an opportunity to get Fate today. So go out and try to get those. I think that his hero challenge is still out there for at least another 2 or 3 days. So especially in the new way that they've done this, you can collect as many as you need. And so I really like the way that they've done that. If you want to spend the gems, you can get him up as high as you need him to be. And like I said, realistically, he's viable at legendary 1.
Now, one of the things that we were talking about before about how to combat the meta is, like, for example, characters that would be used as silver bullets or just ways to completely stop a certain archetype, like how Supergirl and Aquaman stop the arrows. Now, for Deathstroke, what type of mechanic, or what would you put in there to just completely stop, for example, Deathstroke? Because Lobo, we have heal immunity, so that's a good way to deal with him already. But personally, for example, what is the main thing that makes Deathstroke? It's awareness and his buff, right? So what would you do, or what type of mechanic would you introduce or rework on a character that would completely shut him down?
I gotta go with. I gotta go with Catwoman. I'm not so sure you'd have to change much on her because she can hit you immediately, take out all of his buffs, leave him bare and open. And then on top of that, she can even go invisible so that he can't retaliate against her very quickly. And she can heal herself in the process.
Right. But aside from purging, I mean, imagine if there's an ability that would... What type of ability would you want to see more of, or some new ability that would just completely shut him down? That's what I'm saying.
You don't need a new ability. We already have buff immunity.
Right. Mm-hmm. We just don't have enough of buff immunity.
Like, there's only a handful of characters that can apply it, but...
Exactly.
Yeah.
That would be
interesting.
Oh.
Yes, Doom is on, by the way.
Someone snuck up on us there.
Hello.
No, I saw him.
So
I was actually waiting for you to stop talking so I can introduce him.
Okay.
Oh,
Doom,
yes.
let's get your thoughts on the current meta and the counters to it.
Where to start? Well, personally, as far as the meta is concerned, I'm not too worried about it, partly because I'm retired, but also because I run a slow ramping team using chemo in Doomsday. So Deathstroke just becomes a non-issue because you slap some blades on him and he can't kill Doomsday before he bleeds out. But, that's kind of a separate thing. As far as something that I would rework in order to counteract it, oh yeah, I'd definitely say buff immunity, like make it so that if you apply buff immunity, it gets rid of so many buffs as well. But, that's a bit OP on certain avenues. As far as Magic Bullet characters go, honestly, it's more of a development cycle at this point. We went through the Arrows, and then we went through the Aquamans and Supergirls, and then we went through so on and so forth. And we're basically just back at Arrows, but just with different characters. Now, instead of it being Castaway and Emerald Archer, it's Deathstroke and Harley. So,
Right.
But outside of that, the current meta, it's a little bit stale, but honestly, there's ways to work around it. The only reason it became stale is because everyone's relying on the same, 2 or 3 characters. Of course, it's going to get stale. People don't want to explore the options to beat them. They want to explore the options to be them. So all people really have to do is diversify a bit, pick out some other characters in the rosters, because there's tons of characters that counteract both of them. Just off the top of my head, since you guys were mentioning heal immunity before, Dr. Poison, people overlook her so much, but she gets passive heal immunity, she gets bleed, she gets percentage healing, which is amazing on its own. She can spread bleeds, which lets her get bleeds onto Deathstroke through Lobo's taunt. You got a nice big set of options there to work with, but people just neglect her because they're like, why would I use Dr. Poison when I can just use Deathstroke and Baby Lobo?
Right.
Something else I do want to point out, and I was going to actually bring up, true damage will actually remove all awareness, which is something that Dr. Poison's kit has.
Yep, very
AoE
true.
does true damage, and it will remove every single stack of awareness and still hit.
Yep.
I was wondering, so I looked at, for example, characters that have some sort of damage plus true damage ability, like Superman's heat vision, for example. And if you hit Deathstroke, let's say he has a stack of 5 awarenesses on him. How many does it actually take off? Because let's say you have
all of them.
All of them.
But why does it take off all of them?
It doesn't matter how many are there.
Because the way it works is that awareness acts as an immunity in the form of avoid X amount of damage to health by sacrificing Y stack. When you hit them with true damage, it ignores all those stacks. So the game's like, oh, you must not have any awareness because you're taking health damage, and it wipes them.
Is that a bug, or is that intended, you think?
It's probably 100% a bug, but it's a nice bug.
So does that mean also, for example, so Huntress then, her basic with the first upgrade does true damage, right? So
yep.
It has to be at 50%, but yeah.
Oh, right. Okay, so that would never apply. That's pretty funny, actually. Oh wait, yeah. So
yeah.
Just in case anyone was listening. So Huntress's basic upgrade has 2 upgrades that are based on 50% health that doesn't apply to either Deathstroke or Lobo. So
pretty much.
Yeah, but think about it like this. new players can take that freshly minted level 1 3-star Deathstroke they get from campaign for free, use his first ability, and completely wipe a Deathstroke clean. Refreshing. Because his basic attack comes with true damage installed. What did I say?
You said Deathstroke.
Okay,
so
you know what I'm...
Yeah, you mean Deadshot. Okay.
Deadshot, yes.
We're talking about hired gun, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Deadshot hired gun's basic attack does true damage.
Okay.
And it can't miss.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's another way to
It's
do
very
it.
good. Yep.
Ooh.
Which is actually something else that I'm sad about. True damage does not actually get through evasion every time.
Yep, it can be evaded. In fact, fun fact, if both the original hit and the true damage are evaded, Harley will retaliate twice, once for each one.
Oh, jeez.
Yep.
Oh, that's not cool. So she could actually take four turns, 4 shots in a row.
Technically, yes.
Up to, yeah. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, and then she gets that turn meter, and then she's definitely coming after you. Then she gets her AoE and takes out any blue on the table.
Okay.
Most of the time, yeah.
So,
It's a gamble.
All right, so well, let's move on a little bit
we
here.
spent 20 minutes on that.
We've been on this for a while.
All right.
Yeah, you could spend the whole podcast on the meta.
That's
Yeah, sorry I was
So,
late.
well, we could definitely do the whole podcast on the meta, and then do the entire lame talk on the Justice League movie, which I'm sure everybody's wanting to hear anyway. So, but anyway, let's move on a little bit. What about the state of the game? We got some bugs, balances, and various changes. Assault Warsuit Lex leadership now actually gives the full turn meter that it was supposed to. And 2% more shield with his Man of the Hour. What do you guys think?
Cool, I guess. I mean, who's really using him, though? That's the only thing.
He's actually...
Okay, well...
He's not bad. He's not bad, actually.
Yeah, he's actually
Okay.
pretty dang good. I'm not gonna lie. But people don't use him.
He's actually one of my top picks for currently countering the meta,
Yeah, I was watching that video.
just because of his anti-alien strike legendary upgrade. Removing 8 buffs, having plus 100% hit chance, and applying 4 strength downs. He has, on paper, one of the best counter moves to the meta.
The thing about Assault Warsuit Lex that I like the most is that his kit has so much potential. He doesn't even need a rework. His kit has a lot of potential to combo with stuff. And the main thing that I want to do with Lex that Ogre already did in his videos is combo him with Ivy. So, like, giving the fact that he can get damage immunity, he has a can't miss ability that purges, and he's got buffs and ways to spread buffs. That's just so much potential. Like, you know, it's just waiting for the right combinations. That's all. You know?
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, all things considered, pairing him with, say, pairing him with Steppenwolf, for example, right? Steppenwolf gives out a fair amount of AoE buffs, you know? It's kind of one of his things. He gets the shield, he gets the turn meter, and then he gains more turn meter through his abilities. Like, Assault Warsuit Lex is insanely good at accelerating characters, but, you know,
Yeah,
no one ever uses him.
He's the ultimate leader slash support slash tank. And once he's able to get his death immunity, he can stay there for a long time and take out a good chunk of your team.
Yeah,
It's actually not death immunity; it's damage immunity.
Right.
Which is
That's a big difference.
It's 2 turns too, right? It's 2 turns of damage immunity.
Yeah,
It is.
2 turns.
It's heavy.
And he's only got like a 112 speed or something.
Actually, I think he has, at max rank, he has like 119, something like that. It's not bad.
But,
Well, yeah, if you go to gear 11,
but the
it
ironic
gets
thing
like
is
plus 6 more.
the
So.
ironic thing is the fact that he's slow makes him better, right?
Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Tanky and sit there for a while. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So-
and that's the other cool thing, is that with Gear 11, with all these characters with much higher inflated HP scores and things like that, those shields become much, much bigger in comparison to what people are used to. Like, people would say, oh, my Gear 10 gained a buff, he gained like a 3,000 shield. Now your Gear 11 is doing a move, like let's say my Doomsday does a punch. He's not just gaining 3,000 shield anymore, he's gaining like almost 10,000 every punch. So,
Partly the rework, partly the gear 11.
The other thing on the balances, the changes with the bugs or with the recent patches 1.15 and 1.16, they put in a lot of small things. The only other significant thing that they fixed was White Lantern Sinestro, and his rise ability gets 1% more of a buff. But it doesn't. I mean, I'm not sure if that.
Who has him anyway? Who cares?
Exactly.
Because I know I've got all those White Lanterns. Yeah.
I have
Not me.
He's one of 4 characters that I do not have unlocked.
I have him unlocked because I saved up all my void scans until he came back around, and I got him finally.
There you go.
Yeah, but if you're doing it in the void scanner, it literally you have to get 90 shards.
And I did.
To unlock him.
Yes.
Time, but I did it.
That was the last time that I put real cash into the game was whenever he came on sale. I'll admit that.
Okay. The other thing that came up with the last patch that actually is quite annoying for me. It might just be my OCD, but it's the death bars and the changes in animations that I dislike. So the first thing is like if you guys have noticed, based on certain death properties, so being killed by a passive, being killed, for example, by Lobo's AoE after being killed by his bike ability after he revives, you'll see characters that die from that. Their health bars and even their buffs or debuffs that they had at the time will just linger there. The character will disappear, but they'll just stay there. And if a character on your team dies from the same ability, you'll see their corpse on the ground, but the bar will still be above their head.
Mm-hmm.
It's really awkward.
Yeah, it's kind of it's kind of one of those things that's been around for a while, actually, because you used to, if you killed the character, their body would still be standing there in their animation stance, but the bar would be gone.
Right.
Now it's the reverse of that. The bar's still there, but they're dead.
Oh, so, you know what's funny is that when the patch came through and this became an issue, there actually was a bug for the first day of the patch, where if a character with taunt died, his taunt would linger and his health bar would still be there, and they would be forced to attack a dead body. But they patched it out immediate. But I saw it once because my Medfield died with taunt on, and then I just see people running over and kicking his corpse, and I'm like, okay, whatever, that's fine. I'm taking it.
It's about as bad as the flash bug from way back when his passive would trigger and he'd punch the Superman statue.
The one that drives me crazy is I actually, again, you can trash on me. I've got I also run the Deathstroke and the Baby Lobo because hey, that's the meta. Why not? And I always loved at the very end whenever he would do his little cheerleader effect because he would we'd kill the last character and he'd do his little lasso of taunt. And then after that, I always looked forward to seeing that. Now he only does it if you select it yourself. But right now, there's no animation for it, or at least I haven't seen it recently. Only whenever I've selected it myself and made him taunt himself.
They changed it.
Yeah, they did change that.
Yeah, he just kind of rocks back and forth now.
Well, if you look very carefully, he spins his Garrett. He just spins it really fast. That's all. That's all he does.
Yeah, and then you see a little fire animation in the back, but that's about it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sad. I liked the cheerleader effect too.
Yeah.
And screw you guys for having Lobo. My Gear 11 Lobo I love him. He's a super tank.
Yeah, I've fought against. They're hard to kill.
I'll rarely see him res even. He'll just sit there and take so much punishment. It's crazy.
The other small glitch I saw is in his AoE, in the animation of his AoE. Whenever he actually runs people over with his bike, the sprites for the characters disappear. So you just
I think that's only if it's triggered by his res.
Oh no, I think
because when I use it, they fall over.
I don't know. I
actually see them fall over. Whereas if the passive triggers when he reses and they have the legendary upgrade, it will not trigger it.
Okay, that could be what I'm seeing then. So they need to fix that unless it's intended, but I couldn't imagine how that's intended because it looks really awful.
I mean, that move has so many different little visual bugs. If you have really high latency when he does it, you'll actually see him get back into his position, and you'll also just see his bike by itself careening through the enemy line. And it's really interesting to watch.
He jumped off the bike and let it go.
No, but
to be fair, that's what he should have done.
Because when he his animation, right? He actually does like a little roll off of the bike, so you'll just see Lobo standing there. Bike goes by, disappears, and you see a second Lobo rolling away, and it's like, oh, that's that. You know what? That seems right. Whatever.
Well, let's not focusing on Lobo's qualms right now because.
All
All right, so let's move on a little bit, guys. All right, so what do you guys think about the instability with red alerts right now? Dan, why don't you go ahead and start us off this time?
Well, I don't really know I have much instabilities, to be honest with you. I guess I must have missed the boat on what the instability is. I've got a pretty good team that I've set up right now that's led by the hired gun Deadshot. And so I'm usually able to make it through most reds.
Oh, we're talking about
no, the instability is it crashing.
Oh, I'll be honest, I haven't experienced that.
Yeah, I experienced it for the first time like a week ago. I'll be honest, it was kind of frustrating.
I think
now I'm on Android. I don't know if that makes a difference or not, but I'm using an Android. Okay.
Doom, have you been feeling like RA crashing for you? Because we're both on iOS.
No, not really. I mean, not personally. It just kind of plays as normal.
Because I've seen a lot of people complaining about the same thing during red alerts, and I'm feeling it too. You can feel the game getting slower, especially when so after you do the first 1 or 2 fights in red alerts, when you transition from after beating a threat and then going back to the red alert screen, you can feel the loading time getting longer, and you can feel like
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, I did notice that, but I didn't. Okay. Yes. Yeah, there is a lag, but I still get in.
Now that lag, depending on your hardware, if you have enough memory in your hardware, it'll get longer and longer for certain people. And I think that if you have less than 1 gig of RAM on your phone, or whatever device you're using, it will often crash. So basically, after every second fight of RA, I have to actually kill the app, refresh it, so that it doesn't just crash. So, because I've had my team knocked out twice in the same RA. So.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Now, my theory on that is that the game is actually loading each character into the queue separately. So if you fight teams that have a lot of the same characters, you're okay. But if it's loading a different character each time, it's going to add up really fast. I think that's probably part of what's going on there.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say somewhat similarly that I think it's because the game will load your initial list, but it won't get rid of that list when you move from fight to fight. So normally you'd have like a list with 12, you kill one, now you have a list with 11, you kill one, now you have a list with 10. But now instead it's a list of 12 and then a list of 23 because the other 12 are still stored as saved data. And then past that point, you'd have a list of 33, something like that. And that might be the point where the game's like, nope, I can't do it.
Now, Seth Oman online, he brought up an interesting point. Because with the previous patch and this current patch, we didn't have so much crashing before, and he thinks that because they changed something either within red alerts or somewhere within the game, in red alerts it's creating some kind of programming like loophole somewhere that's creating a memory leak. So what happens is that as a result of you accessing that little loophole or that little bug in the programming, your hardware is trying to process something a little bit too much more than it needs to in that one instance. And the proof behind this is that even if you don't continue fighting within RA, but you go on to do another mode, let's say you want to do a heroic campaign or a PvP fight, you'll notice that you'll get that mode also will get sluggish too after you reload out of a fight. So what's happening is the whole game, the whole app itself is processing memory. You're using memory a lot more than it was before you entered that RA fight. That's what his theory is. So there's no real proof behind it. But yeah.
Sounds plausible.
Yeah.
So we got a couple theories at least.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and move on. We don't want to make this too long, and we're already approaching the 40-minute mark.
Yep.
Or 50-minute mark even.
Yeah.
Alliance missions, a lot has changed, obviously. Now we have up to 5 eligible characters, 1 weekly character, and then varying point values for the different characters. The weekly granting 5, and then 2 2s and 2 1s. What do you guys think? Does this give new players more options to help their alliance? Does it reward players with deep rosters? Personal and alliance missions have both had caps changed and point values changed on how much was rewarded. What do you guys think of this? Doom, let's start with you.
Well, I'm a cynical person, so of course my input on it is it looks more like a rich get richer type situation. Sure, you have some newer players who can lend a bigger hand toward their alliance, and that's great, and that's fantastic, and I'm glad that they included something that includes more people. However, when it comes to making top 100, things have gotten snowballed like mad. Like, let me think. Legacy of Doom, at one point, I think our weekly was 50 points, something like that. It was way back in the day. Now it's, I think, 900. And
that's insane,
isn't it? But it's necessary to hit the top 100. And the thing is that most of us are players with decently expanded rosters. We can actually hit those score totals. But for a newer player, like this week's +5 was Steppenwolf, right? If they're not in the top parts of PvP, or at least a decent amount up in PvP, which how could they be with the meta as it is? And if they're not spending money, how are they going to participate past that point? And then from there, you have the same players who are already dominant, getting more dominant because now they're getting more alliance essence, and the packs have been changed to make them better, and so on and so forth. So I'll say it's a good improvement, but it has its downsides, and I feel like those downsides really target newer player base more so than it does, the more veteran, more grizzled, more developed rosters of the veteran player base.
So Doom was talking about Legacy of Doom, his alliance with that, or his former alliance. How about the Superhero review? How are they dealing with this?
We've been consistently in the top 50, really, since this new change. There was a time whenever we were struggling to just get right above that 100 mark. But what we've noticed is that the majority of the 30 members that we have in our Superhero review team or in our alliance have pretty deep rosters. If you look at mine right now, the only character that I don't have unlocked is Shazam. And that's just because I didn't want to spend the money on him. But that's it. I have them all. I have all the rest of them unlocked, and I think that's probably 28 out of the 30 have a pretty deep roster. And so, to Doom's point, it does reward those that have spent the time. But let's not fool ourselves. This is all about making money. We wouldn't be on this podcast. I wouldn't have a channel. And we wouldn't be talking about this game that we all love. If it wasn't for the people that spend the money in the app. And that's how they've gotten people to spend more money, is because you get that pressure from your alliance to say, hey, we really need you to step up. We really need you to do this. Well, I don't have that character. Okay, well, he's available right now in the store. Spend a little bit of cash, spend $5 here and there, and you can unlock a character too. There's no question that the devs took a step forward to say, hey, how can we keep some money flow into this app? And I think that was a pretty smart move on their point.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
if I may interject with one last thing, it would bother me less if they included characters that you could get for free up to that point, reliably. Like if they picked Aquaman instead, again, or say, whatever the character that you can get for clearing PvP boards. That would be one thing. But including Steppenwolf when he'd only been out officially for 3 days, that just rubs me the wrong way.
Well, now keep in mind, he was the PvP reward for that previous week, and you did have to push yourself up into basically the 1500 range to be able to unlock him. But I think even at the lower rankings, you could still get 90 of his hero fragments, and that was, I want to say, 2 weeks back that he was the PvP reward.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not doubting that you could get him, but a lot of players can't carry a dead man in PvP.
Yeah.
So those missions, you're basically not making any.
Yeah.
Unless you have Deathstroke, of course.
Yeah, unless you have Deathstroke, in which case, just throw whoever you want.
It's sort of like perpetuating the same problem here. But what I was going to say about this change for the Justice League of Reddit, the JLR, we look at this in two different ways. Much like you guys, your alliances, we have a lot of people with a lot of deep rosters and a lot of veteran players. So it definitely rewards them because they have enough to capitalize, for example, on PvE days, even PvP days. You won't often see a whole team of 4 of the Alliance mission characters on PvP, but you will on PvE days. Now, the question is it really, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer? I think being optimistic, I think everyone benefits from this. Like, if we compare this to the previous system, if you're a newbie and you really have a very limited roster, there are days where you can't contribute anything to your alliance because you just don't have any of the characters, any of the 3, right? Now, even if you have 1 of 5, even if it's a 1-point character, you can give something. Something is better than nothing. So that's sort of my optimistic viewpoint on that. But I will say that, yeah, definitely people who have a more built-out roster will benefit the most from it. So, yeah, that goes without saying.
And one of the things that I really like about this new change is that they've come up with the big arena packs, if you will, for the alliances. I mean, nobody wanted to spend their money, their 9,000 that they've saved up and get a peanut butter spread of characters. You wanted to be able to get a focused effort on characters. And so I really do like the different packs that they've created for the alliance. And now you've got 2 different packs to look at.
It's actually a good transition. It's our next talking point, actually. The Lance packs with introduction of the 3 different sizes that look exactly like the PvP packs. With different rarities now being introduced into those packs. We also had some changes. Batgirl, Aquaman, and I don't remember who the other one was.
Firestorm
got added in. Dr. Fate, Joker Damaged Goods, and Black Adam got taken out.
Yep.
But the ones who got taken out are still available in the individual pack for the 3 and 5 shards. And the new ones are not yet. Yeah. Interesting, because that one Aquaman.
I'm wondering if that's a bug or if that's intended. Because I'm wondering if it's sort of like a programming mishap where they actually wanted the rotation to be like complete, or if they wanted to still put them there to have a way to access them. You know what I mean?
I'd say it's probably a happy accident where they're like, "Oh yeah, no, we totally meant to do that. We're looking out for the players, but in reality, someone's getting fired in the technical department."
Yeah, but what if someone's like, I want to farm Firestorm. I just want Batgirl shards. Give me Aquaman shards. I don't want to buy these big packs for them,
Right.
I'm
mixed on it.
Yeah.
I'm mixed on it because I want Damaged Goods Joker and I want Aquaman. I can't have both.
The thing I like about the packs, though, and even though I was writing a post about this earlier in the month about when this came out, and I did the math on it a little bit of whether it's worth it or not. The thing I like about it is that they put a lot of the hard to get characters in the rarity slots that I think that were really appropriate. Like having Champion of the Amazon Wonder Woman as common is really good, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And
She can do some damage if you don't spend the time in PvP to take her out, and somebody's at least got her to level 60, an L1 G10 status. She can do some damage even to those higher characters.
Oh no, I know. Trust me, I've been rocking Kata Wonder Woman since the beginning. I rocked her back when she had that bug where she let her chain her own assist call 27 times on a single character. Now those were the days. Yeah. You want to talk about damage?
Doom was playing Wonder Woman before she was cool.
That's right.
Well, he was playing Wonder Woman because he had the bug where he got her to L1 instantly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Good times.
Okay, so in terms of the pack overall, like the one thing that I will mention that I posted in the post earlier this month about that was that if you're looking for specific characters, the packs are actually not that worth it if you're patient. So if you're patient, you just wait for the character you're looking for to rotate around. It's better to just concentrate on their shards because you won't have as many wasted resources, right? That's saying if you only want 1 or 2 characters. If you need a lot of the characters in the pack, then it's a lot more economical for you to go through the smaller, the mini and the big pack in terms of the shard value. But if you're looking for loot, for example, the mega pack is the best because it guarantees the loot, and it also gives you a higher chance to get higher rarities, like for example Superman or Aquaman in the rare slot. So that's something to consider.
Yeah. Honestly,
definitely.
I think it's an overdue change, but I think it's a nice change. It's something that we should have had from the get-go, because I remember way back when even Raijin was talking about, he was like, maybe I'll suggest that we make it 16 of 1 instead of 1 of 16. But this was months ago. So
yeah.
I'm glad it's finally here. Normally I'd be cynical and say, oh, freaking lazy doves and all that. But no, you know what? They did good by us. I'll give them leniency this time.
Yep.
We should probably.
I like the pact.
We should probably step on the gas a bit because we still have a lot to talk about.
All right, so
Let's go.
Yeah, we do. So Red Alert changes in their rewards. We added Siren, Killer Frost, Huntress, Emerald Archer, Green Arrow, Captain Cold. We took out Jessica Cruz, Supergirl, Cyborg, Princess Themyscira, Wonder Woman, and Bizarro. I'm personally really sad to lose Bizarro.
Me too.
But
I wanted more Bizarro.
What do you guys think? I know, and it was only available at the 15 slot. Now, apparently, you can get the 7 and 15 slots for the harder to get characters, so that's at least good. Do you guys have any thoughts on these real quick?
Yeah, honestly, they transferred out a lot of characters no one actually uses, and they put in a lot of characters that people do use. So I'm happy about it.
Emerald Archer, Green Arrow. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. I wasn't happy. The only thing I'm not happy about is the fact that they put in more of the heroic challenge event characters that were for certain months, like Siren and Captain Cold, because I already have them at like L4, L5. But I mean, those are for players. That's definitely intended for the new players who weren't around during that time and are looking for opportunities to pick up their cards. So
yeah, because it's been quite a while since those.
Right.
Yeah, honestly, we're a bunch of old farts. We can't even complain that old characters coming back.
Like, seriously.
Yep.
Right.
So, and then the arena packs also had some changes. We added Jessica Cruz, we added Cyborg, took out Cheetah, took out Princess Themyscira. And obviously, World Heroes Attack of Batman's still there.
Yeah.
I'm not going to complain about that personally, because I like him. I think he's a really good character. I think he counters the meta pretty good.
I'm pretty sure I have enough.
Well, you're going to complain about everybody, dude.
No, I'm pretty sure I have enough for World Greatest Detective Batman to be L6.
Yeah.
I could L10 mine, honestly. Like, my Batman is legit the greatest. No detective greater than mine.
Yeah.
As far as the arena packs, I don't know why they'd add Jessica Cruz, and I don't know why they'd put Cyborg back in.
Reworks coming.
Hopefully. But as far as
there is that possibility.
Cheetah, that's the only thing that makes me sad. Cheetah was a good ad. She was a common character. A lot of new players couldn't use her. There she goes.
Cheetah's one of those characters that does counter the meta right now pretty good.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, like, losing her was a big deal. I actually just got mine to L4 too, so I'm happy about that.
I also find it,
and we got to keep in mind. We got to keep in mind the the newbies that have just hit the app. Like we all said, we've been here for a while. We've been here for a year now, and some of those people don't have easy access to Cyborg or easy access to Cheetah, and those are two pivotal characters if used properly.
You see, I disagree on that because they're both available in story mode.
Yeah, and Cheetah, but I think that there's
Cyborg
less of a chance. Does he?
Cyborg has 4 nodes. Cheetah has 7 nodes. They're there. They're available. It's just people don't want to take the time to actually farm a character.
Yes.
Right.
It's not Hal Jordan,
right,
or Zatanna, or whoever it is they're using as their primary character. And I get that. That's fine. Whatever.
And it uses so much energy to go to those 8th levels and 6th levels. I mean, I'm upset because I got to use 10 in the first go round.
Honestly,
fair enough.
I don't know. The only thing that gets me about Cyborg is he's been available for quite literally 95% of the game in terms of arena packs. Like, just
either in arena packs or Red Alert. Yeah.
Give me something new. Give me Bizarro.
Like, it's just weird that why
seriously, give me Bizarro.
Why take him out and bring him back, right? That's my weird. That's like my one thing. I don't understand.
Rework.
Yeah.
Well, why did we get a hero challenge for him? Like, honestly, that didn't make any sense aside from it being the Justice League month. So, that might be why. So who knows? I
have a small tinfoil hat theory here. If you look very carefully at the 2 last things, Red Alerts and Arena Pack both have removed Princess of Themyscira from their packs, or from the ability to get their shards. So why? Because she'll rework for this character, rework for this month later on down the line, and as the pattern is holding, she comes out with her gem pack. She already did this week. So
$24.99.
Yeah.
Yep.
Why would I need to buy this gem pack if I can pick it up in all these different modes of the game?
You got it.
So
It gives me hope that Bizarro will be available soon.
Yeah. Let's not even get me started on tinfoil hat conspiracy theories as far as this game is concerned.
Yeah, why would you bring that up, DP? Come on.
That's like, all right,
Jeez.
You're just tilting Doom.
Let's keep this flowing.
All right, so we just recently had some packs that were interesting. Enchantress had a pack. Scarecrow had a pack. We had the anniversary packs with the Void Scanner pack, costing 10 gems for 10 free spins. We had the anniversary packs in general just had some decent deals. And then most recently we have the Black Friday deals. What do you guys think of all these deals going on right now? Like, DP, this is your forte, so let's give it to you.
Well, to go through it real quick, the first thing with the end of the month character packs, there's a pattern that's holding. There's 2,500 gems and 3,000 gems for each of the two characters. Now, we thought it was based on paywall or not paywall, but I think it's kind of random. Because this last month, Enchantress was the one that was 500 gems more expensive, and she's not the paywall character, and Scarecrow is. So Scarecrow was the one that's 2,500. So we're not really sure what the pattern is there, but we know that one of them is going to be 25, and one of them is going to be 3,000 gems. So the other one is that the anniversary
now
pack,
isn't Steppenwolf's 2,500 right now?
Yeah, that's the thing. So Steppenwolf now he's the cheaper one, right? So he's the paywall character. Yeah. So it's kind of sticking to the last month's pattern. So we'll see if the next month is also the same. Because the month before that it was Lobo. Lobo was the cheaper one, and Vixen was the more expensive one, which kind of is sort of where we got off thinking that it was because she was a paywall character. But in terms of the special event sales, the anniversary packs are not something that I would have recommended to anyone pretty much, except for the Steppenwolf glitch. There was the Steppenwolf glitch where he was in the villains pack for a brief while, and for those who were really lucky and got a couple of his shards from that, great on you. But overall, I tend to stay away from the variable character packs, not the ones that are variable shard packs, but basically when you're just looking at like over 20, 30 characters in a list, and you're trying to get like maybe a handful of them at best, the odds are really stacked against you. Unless you're a new player and you're pretty much happy with any of them, then it's not really worth the buy. So
there's 70 characters in the game right now?
Yeah, exactly.
So
and even if you
all right, moving on, let's actually talk about what people might be interested in here. The reworked characters. We had Batman, The Dark Knight, and Wonder Woman, Princess of Themyscira both getting reworked. Batman TDK finally got turned into an energy. For a long time, he was a physical character who had energy gear. Then that got corrected. Now he's been turned into an energy altogether. He basically punishes taunts. And then Wonder Woman Princess Themyscira is a purge machine tank. So let's just go around the room real quick and talk about each character real quick. Dan, what do you got?
Well, I think of the two, I definitely like the reworked Wonder Woman more. Like you said, a purge machine tank. I liked. I've even dabbled with her at the leadership position and getting the call assist that comes from her, all the purging that comes from her. So I think that she has some promise. I think there's no doubt that they reworked both these characters in understanding what the current meta is. So you can use your Batman to attack Lobo. You can use your brand new Wonder Woman to attack Deathstroke. And so I don't think that there was any doubt that what they did was to try and combat the current meta.
DP, what do you got?
Of the two, I'm on the opposite side. I like TDK more than Princess Themyscira. I have both of them like geared out reasonably high. The only reason why I'm a little bit off Princess Themyscira is because her purge ability on her third ability was fixed / nerfed, depending on which side of the coin you're on, because it doesn't purge on miss, and I feel like that's supposed to be how it was intentionally. It just kind of makes more sense based on certain types of character properties, right? It's kind of the same thing with Hal Jordan's hammer and other characters with similar effects. But the reason why I like TDK is because he introduces something that they have never done before, is switching over a affinity for a certain character, which is cool, really cool if you think about what they could do with a lot of characters in the future.
Yeah.
And he's a great answer to Harley Quinn, which is a big part of the metagame that people need to sort of trudge through when they go through PvP. And he's quite accessible. Like, he was a PvP board clear for the longest time. So a lot of people who played back in the day have a ton of his shards. He was available as a PvP reward, and he was available here and there. So as long as you have him at L1, he's already good enough to deal with Harley Quinn as she's taunting, and even Lobo. So, and he's a huge tank at high gear. So he's
So what legendary are you taking once you get him to L1?
Probably his stun first. So
yeah, just for those that are listening and wondering.
Yeah, it's a good point. Doom, do you have anything to chime in on these two?
Yeah, I mean, Batman TDK turned into what's basically budget cyborg Superman, but I can appreciate what he brings to the table. I'm glad they made him a character that's a bit more viable than he was. I wish they kind of would have, I don't know, made his last ability a bit different. I don't see why they put him as silent, but that's, whatever. That's just more nitpicking. As far as Princess of Themyscira goes, Purge tanks, it's okay, I guess, but I don't know. The only thing that's really interesting on her, as far as I'm concerned, is the debuff immunity. Like, I can't help but wonder what that's actually going to play in the overall scheme of the game, Because, I mean, right now it might not do much, but thinking into the future for, characters that are coming up, they have to balance around the idea that there might be a chance that you just can't get any debuffs off on the enemy team. And I think that's going to definitely shape the game a bit.
Here's my thought on that, is the Aquaman Momoa was released as a crit-related character, and so was Steppenwolf to a degree. So I think both of those were kind of playing into the Arrow meta, which was entirely crit-based. So I think there was a worry that maybe the arrows might start showing back up. And that might be why it was kind of a preemptive, hey, just in case.
I guess, but if that were the case, Aquaman to counter Aquaman, then you're set.
That's the one thing I like.
Fair enough.
By the other
it is funny that the original Aquaman hard counters the new Aquaman.
Yeah, that's always the way it tends to go, isn't it? Old characters countering the as far as their reincarnations go. But speaking on him, let's talk about Aquaman.
Yeah. What do we guys got on Aquaman? Do you guys like him at all?
No.
Do you use him? I haven't used him at all. I didn't even go for Legendary 1, hardly.
I have.
I think at the end of the month I will actually have Legendary 1, but I didn't really try for him at all. I don't personally like his kit. Doesn't play with anything that I currently use or will ever use, for that matter. Dan, what do you got?
Well, I think I'm in the boat of I try to get as many characters as I can for as much as I can. And so I usually wind up getting as many of those shards as I can get my hands on. So I think I've got enough to take him to L3. I'm not going to anytime soon, but when the time presents itself, I'll be able to. But no, I have not used him much at all.
All right, DP?
I've gotten Aquaman to, he's currently at L3. He'll be L4 by the end of the month after I pick up his last logins. But, I'm like Dan, I always try and get as many shards as I can to get at least to L4 for each character. Because I'll never know, like I have an L4 Blue Beetle I'll never use, but, who knows when he'll come into use, right? But that's sort of my, I'll pick it up while I can. That's sort of my theory on these types of hero challenges. But as a character, I've played with him here and there in PvE, even in PvP, and he's okay. He needs at least a couple of characters on the team to make him more synergistic. So if you pair him with Cheetah or Wonder Woman or anything that does team buffs or self buffs very quickly, like even Cyborg is a great option, he can ramp really quickly. So when he starts getting like a consistent crit chains, he becomes another Hal Jordan, right? So if you have Hal Jordan and him and say like Cyborg and Doomsday on your team, you have like a pretty good chain of call assisting, for example. You can have a call assist team based around him and other characters like him. So He
Not a
has.
bad idea.
I like it.
He has a sort of fun kit, but it's definitely niche, and you have to build around it. So in the current meta, he doesn't have a great spot, but he could be useful given time. Like if you bring characters like Doomsday or Cyborg that benefits from call assists, he'll definitely be a big player in those type of team compositions. But currently, not super useful.
Doom, you have anything to?
Yeah, actually, I don't know. I think he's pretty good, which is weird because I was very cynical about him when I first got him. But, you know, my favorite character is Firestorm, who also benefits from, like, these mass buffing strategies. So, I mean, you know, given the characters you compare him with and how fast he can ramp up, I think he's one of those secret top-tier type characters, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Like, obviously, I'm not going to make the bold claim, like, oh, he's going to be the new meta, because I don't really think Deathstroke meta's going anywhere. But, you know, he's got some pretty nice abilities, but it is always worth it to mention to people, passives don't trigger passives. Please keep that in mind.
Yep.
Looking over his kit, because his kit looks insane if you don't know that. You know what I mean? Like, could you imagine having him and Star Sapphire and they just keep trading off buffs and all that jazz? No, it's not how it works. Also, his whole thing where he gives, like, 2 agility to the first character damaged in a turn, right? That makes some characters pretty dang beefy after a while. But, yeah, that's that.
I'm going to wrap this back around and say that Assault Warsuit Lex lead would actually be a good buff team. Do, like, Assault Warsuit Lex, Aquamoa, Doomsday, and Cheetah. Actually sounds pretty good.
Everyone is so
I don't know.
rampy so fast.
I personally would probably instead include Wonder Woman DOJ,
Well, I would include
just
Ivy.
because her basic attack spreads buffs.
Yeah.
That would definitely be my move over, say, I don't know, probably over Doomsday, because Doomsday doesn't actually buff anyone else.
Not to be a killjoy.
See, I would actually take Ivy.
Not to be a killjoy. We need to move on. We need to move on to another character.
All right, we got one character left, guys. Steppenwolf. He's new. I barely have him. Do you guys have him unlocked and use him at all? DP?
Yeah, I have him unlocked, and I use him as the dead man on my Deathstroke team. That's it. For the Alliance missions.
Dan? What do you got?
Well, I'm using him. I don't have him completely powered up yet, but where I've noticed he's been useful is when he stays alive long enough and makes it through the first wave of everybody else attacking. I've been able to use his hit chance up because usually the Huntress on the other team has either self-buffed and given herself a couple of evasions, and the increased hit chance really works well because I'm using Deathstroke. And so he'll right after that, Deathstroke will have his turn, and then usually can get through those evasions pretty well most of the time.
Yeah. All right, Doom?
2 things on him. One, I don't know if you guys talked about it already, but the whole start of game type mechanics that have been shifting around, like how Jordan's now able to counteract rage with his rage immunity, things like that. I think it's interesting that he applies such things at the beginning of the match, and, you know, it definitely shapes up what the direction of the next few characters might be, because, once again, you have to take all these kinds of things into consideration when you're developing those new characters. So are we going to see more effects like this? How's it actually going to change? Are we just going to have a bunch of characters firing off powers at the beginning of the game? Who knows? But the other thing about him, honestly, I look at him, he's just Magic Bullet status. He exists simply because Harley Quinn and Deathstroke are problems. If they weren't problems, he wouldn't exist. Or he would, but he'd have an entirely different. So, I don't know. His kit's fine. Hit chance up is nice, I guess. But the rest of it's meh, whatever. He works well against Scarecrow, as it happens. But that's about it.
Yeah. I think the devs were actually over worried about Scarecrow being too powerful, and he turned out to be a non-factor whatsoever. So that's beside the point. So yeah. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to GP for the final announcements and closing credits and everything, and then we'll get into lame talk.
So
Thank you guys for listening.
So let's wrap things up for this section of the Game Talk part of the show. As usual, I'd like to thank all our co-hosts. Ogre, Doom, and Dan this time on the show. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
And we'll continue on for the next part too. But for all of those of you guys listening, if you guys like what we're doing, we're providing all this content to you guys for free. You can go ahead and follow us on social media at Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and SoundCloud at The Oddsman. And there'll be links on Reddit, and I think there's already a link on Discord. And this content that we make for you guys is free, but if you ever feel like you want to help support us, you can head on over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/theoddsmen, and there's different tiers of patronage that you can subscribe for. So if you want to help us provide better content to you guys and maybe extra content in the future based on what we have to offer, you can go ahead and check that out. Again, shout outs to currently our only $20 patron, Hate Mail, who is a boss, rocking the Oddsman patron Discord special role in our Discord channel. And for all you guys tuning in live on Discord, thank you. And all of you guys listening on the podcast version, thank you as well. Any last words, guys?
I got nothing.
Okay. So we'll cut into the next section then. But before we go, for the next topic for the next episode, we'll look at December, probably Christmas, end of the year type of things, and our guest for that episode will be French fries. That's it.
Cool.
So I did want to say one thing in closing, if that's okay. What I thought was really cool is that we're now kind of at the 1 year anniversary of when this game first kicked off. And so, I know that I wouldn't even have a YouTube channel if it wasn't for this game and for the developers. And so I think it's kind of fun for everybody to kind of trash on WB Games and the people over there. And but the fact is, this podcast wouldn't be here, my channel wouldn't be here, and we wouldn't be talking about all this fun stuff if it wasn't for them. So on a high note, I'd like to just say thank you to the people at WB, thank you to the people at the WB Games, and happy 1 year anniversary to everybody over there at the WB site.
Well said.
I will second this motion.
I will second and a half this motion. I don't know. WB is always a sour spot for me. But I do actually want to say one thing to the community before we go. You guys are great. I'm sorry that, some of us haven't been around as much, making as much content as we usually do. Game fatigue hits us all, but it's always worth it to come back and see your guys' smiling faces, except for whoever the guy is that keeps downvoting everybody. Well, I can't say what I want to say to that on this podcast. I have to be family friendly, but more to the point though, we do appreciate you guys a lot. Even though we don't have that many people listening, for those of you that do, we do sincerely thank you.
All right, so on that note, we're gonna take a couple minutes break and then go into the Lame Talk version right after this. For those of you listening to the podcast version, the Lame Talk version will come after the Game Talk about a week later. So sit tight, and for those of you on Discord, we'll be right back.
Hey guys, this is Ogre Barbarian of the Oddsman. Wanted to give a huge shout out and thanks to everyone for listening. Catch us when we go live on Discord, and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and SoundCloud at The Oddsman. Feel free to check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/theoddsman, for a variety of opportunities to help us grow and provide better content. Thanks again for your continued support, and as always, enjoy and grind on.